So this is an old this device was what's called an Ethernet switch. The front of them usually looks like all these ports here, and you have a bezel here. It's usually like a metal chassis. Sometimes you see these in like home networks too. There'll be like 4-port, 8-port Netgear things. This was an old 3-com. This was in a custodial closet because their buildings are old. They weren't built for networks in like the 1950s, 60s. So then things just get put wherever there's space in the little closet, and usually it's a custodial closet, which I pretty much despise at this point. And I'm only 3 years in, just 4 years about, and this is why you get all this. At least this is the worst one we had. It got all rusty and crusty and corroded. I replaced it with a new Cisco 3850 model, and that was about 2-3 years ago. And that one 6 months ago I had a fan issue. I had to reseat the fan in it. I had 2 or 3 ports. The power over Ethernet failed on the new Cisco. I've had things where I had to unplug something and plug it back in like 3 or 4 times just because of corrosion or something built on the jack in there. I absolutely hate it, but we're trying to figure out some way to fix it, but I don't know what we're going to do yet. But this is kind of a teardown, and I don't know exactly how these were made, but here's all your Ethernet ports. Usually things like this also have they call it a LAN isolation transformer. I always assumed that was so that it would ignore the POE and it wouldn't interfere with the ASICs and stuff that's in here doing the logic, but I don't know quite what the point of the LAN isolation transformer is. I've seen them on a lot of NIC cards. Some of them are in the back, built into the jack. Judging from the size of the jack and the depth of this thing, I'm guessing that it's built into the jacks in this case. And in this board went here on these little riser pins. I took one of these apart before, and it didn't have POE because it got hit by lightning and it didn't work right. Ended up taking it apart to see what was wrong. Ended up these boards, the chips were basically blown right off the board. The board was separated in layers and stuff. You move these 2 like mod expansion boards, this whole switch started working again. So I'm guessing these are like a DC-DC converter or something like that. Probably turns like, I don't remember what the power supply output, I think it was like 12 volts and 50 volts. So I'm guessing this is like a regulator or something for the 40 volt PoE. So it looks like a lot of diodes, a few chips. It's basically like a RAM slot for like a motherboard they used. The other side's got a few, looks like resistors, things in it. A few more diodes there. Power connector for the power supply. A few, looks like ceramic caps there. And those all seem to go down towards the Ethernet ports. And I'm assuming under here, these are basically like NIC transceiver chips. Here's some kind of an ASIC. So I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 of those heat sinks. So I'm thinking 12 of them on a 48-port switch, so there's probably like 4 ports or so per each of those chips, which would kind of make sense because I've seen 2 and 4-port NIC cards. So, and back here you got some power regulation. I'm guessing that's kind of like a VRM module. It looks like you got a couple inductors there, the delta boxes, that thing. Got a couple caps, some diodes. Got some kind of a chip there, and another one there. Broadcom, I'm not totally sure what that chip is. You got some expansion base slots there. And then this was where the SFP modules for fiber and stuff went in, and this was basically like a console port and display that hooks in there on those headers. few traces off the ports, a bunch of passives and things under those chips, a bunch more under that, those bigger chips. That's probably like a flash memory chip. And actually, that's probably flash too. This might be like RAM or something. I'm not totally sure, but that's like the motherboard of this thing. And you got a few cooling fans, a crusty power supply, and that's pretty much what's in an Ethernet switch.